Piers Morgan shocked the world that night, and not even his closest followers saw it coming. The cameras were rolling, his tone was steady, his expression sharper than usual. People thought it would be another one of his typical rants about Meghan Markle, but no, not this time. That night, he came armed. Not with words, not with opinions, but with what he called receipts. And the moment those alleged photos appeared on screen, every viewer froze. They weren't red carpet photos, they weren't royal portraits, they weren't even images from her acting days on Suits. These were something else entirely. They looked private, intimate, from another world entirely. The kind of photos you'd think were buried long ago, wiped clean from every trace of the internet. But somehow, they were back flashing on national television. And as they appeared, people whispered the same thing in disbelief. This isn't the Meghan we were told about. For years, the world believed a story. The humble fairy tale of a hardworking girl who grew up modestly, chased her dreams, and by some miracle of destiny, fell in love with a prince. That was the version we were all shown, polished, glossy, and perfectly rehearsed. But those photos? They told a different story. A story where Meghan wasn't stumbling into destiny, she was walking straight toward it, step by deliberate step. The images allegedly showed her in her Soho House days, nights filled with soft laughter, dim lights, and circles most of us could never enter. Surrounded by men of influence, the kind whose names open doors the rest of us don't even know exist. And that's when people started asking if these pictures were real. Why had they been hidden for so long? You see, the Meghan everyone thinks they know is the one from interviews, the one who spoke about compassion, simplicity, and doing good in the world. The Meghan who said she lived on a budget, struggled to make it, and climbed her way up from nothing. But those who allegedly saw these photos described something completely different, a woman who had access, power, and confidence long before the palace ever came into view. She wasn't on the outside looking in, she was already inside. And here's where it gets strange. Soho House isn't just a restaurant or a social club, it's a fortress of exclusivity. Only a chosen few ever get in. Its founder made it clear. They don't want drama, they don't want paparazzi bait, and they don't hand out membership to anyone who just asks. Even Hollywood stars have been turned away. And yet, somehow, a then mid-tier actress like Meghan not only entered but became a regular, moving through its hidden halls as if she owned them. According to Prince Harry's own memoir, Soho House wasn't just a hangout spot for Meghan, it was her headquarters. She kept her luggage there. The staff knew her name. She floated from city to city, London, Toronto, New York, and there was always a Soho House waiting for her, doors open. How? Why? Who let her in? That's where Marcus Anderson's name starts to surface, and once you hear his story, everything begins to make sense. Marcus wasn't just a friend. He was the global membership director for Soho House, the man who literally decided who got in and who didn't. He was the gatekeeper to the most powerful rooms in the world. And Meghan? She was always right by his side. Not once, not twice, but everywhere. Los Angeles, Toronto, London, New York, even California after she married Harry. Wherever she went, Marcus was there too. People started noticing. These weren't random coincidences. Executives don't follow actresses across continents without reason. So what was the connection? Because if Marcus was the man who opened the doors, then Meghan was the one who always seemed ready to walk through them. He had influence connections that went beyond celebrity. Billionaires, producers, politicians, the kind of people who shape industries behind closed doors. And suddenly, Meghan wasn't just a girl from Suits. She was part of something bigger, something carefully arranged. Some say Marcus introduced her to Prince Harry himself. Others believe he orchestrated more than just introductions, that he helped her build an entirely new life, step by calculated step. But that's not where the whispers end. Another name floated into the story, Christopher Jones. According to insiders, he worked on private yachts, those floating luxury worlds where famous faces and rich investors mingle far away from cameras. He claimed his path crossed Meghan's during that same period, back when her life was supposedly simpler. Not every yacht gathering is scandalous. Sometimes it's business, sometimes just social climbing. But paired with everything else, the elite circles, the invitations, the hidden photos, it started forming a pattern too sharp to ignore. Because this wasn't about one event, one person, or one opportunity. It was about access. And Meghan, long before she was Duchess of Sussex, had more of it than anyone could understand. Those who knew her back then described a woman who could move through any crowd, charm any host, and fit perfectly into any environment she wanted. It wasn't luck, it was precision. And yet, the most curious part came later after Piers allegedly aired those photos. Normally, when Meghan's image is attacked, her reaction is swift. Lawsuits, letters, public statements. She's built a reputation for defending herself fiercely. But this time, nothing. No denials, no clarifications, no legal threats, just silence. And in that silence, people heard something louder than any words, the sound of questions she didn't want to answer. Because when something isn't true, Meghan fights it. She sues, she challenges, she wins. But when something might be true or when fighting it might drag it further into the spotlight, sometimes silence is the only weapon left. And that silence left the world buzzing. Was she protecting herself? Or protecting a truth she couldn't afford to confirm? And then there's the history between Piers and Meghan, a story that sounds almost too cinematic to be real. Before the royal headlines, before the Netflix documentaries, they actually met. A simple drink in 2016. He thought it was the beginning of a friendship, maybe a professional bond. They talked, they laughed, and he thought he saw in her a spark of authenticity. But the next night, she vanished. No explanation, no message, no call. That same night, she went to Soho House and met Prince Harry. From that moment, Piers never heard from her again. To anyone else, being ghosted might sting for a day. But to Piers, it became personal. Especially when her relationship with Harry went public days later. It wasn't just rejection, it was betrayal. And as Meghan's fame skyrocketed, his resentment grew in silence. When he criticized her, she struck back. When he questioned her truth, the backlash forced him off his show. She filed complaints against him directly, and ITV cut ties. That kind of humiliation doesn't fade easily. So, when those photos allegedly appeared on his broadcast, people didn't see it as another celebrity spat. They saw revenge, a score being settled in front of millions. For Piers, this was the moment to prove the Meghan he met was not the Meghan the world had been sold. And for Meghan, the silence spoke volumes. Piece by piece, the story began to form its own strange symmetry. The private circles, the introductions, the hidden photos, the timing of her rise, nothing looked accidental anymore. It began to feel orchestrated, crafted, a climb so precise, it seemed rehearsed. And that's where the emotional punch hits, because maybe Meghan's greatest role was never Rachel Zane from Suits. Maybe it was Meghan Markle, the character she built from fragments of every world she passed through. People who've studied her rise say she has an uncanny ability to adapt, to mirror, to charm, to blend in. When she was in Hollywood, she was the hustling actress. When she joined the royals, she became the humanitarian duchess. And in each role, she played her part flawlessly. Some even whispered she modeled her public demeanor after Princess Diana, the gestures, the smiles, even the way she tilted her head in interviews. Whether that's true or not, the precision is undeniable. Because the Meghan who steps out in designer coats and tearful interviews might just be another version 1, shaped by lessons learned long before Harry ever came into her life. And those alleged photos from Soho House? They're not just images. They're symbols, glimpses into the version of Meghan she never wanted the world to remember. Every fairy tale hides a secret, and this one is no different. The world was given the polished version, the actress who found her prince, the woman who spoke of empowerment and truth. But in the flicker of those photographs, another version appeared, older, wiser, more deliberate. The Meghan who understood the value of positioning, of being seen by the right eyes at the right time. Because maybe the real story isn't about scandal at all. Maybe it's about transformation. About a woman who studied every room she entered and learned exactly how to survive it. From Soho House to Buckingham Palace, from yacht decks to red carpets, she moved through every world with one goal: to never go back to being ordinary. So when the lights dimmed after Piers' broadcast and the whispers spread across social media like wildfire, one truth remained. Nobody really knows who Meghan Markle was before she became the Duchess. And maybe that's exactly how she wants it. Because once the fairy tale begins, the audience stops asking what came before the first chapter. But the past has a funny way of returning through old friends, old photos, and the memories people thought were erased. Whether the images were real or not, whether the rumors hold weight or crumble under proof, the story they tell is clear. Meghan's life was never random. It was deliberate, layered. And when the mask slipped, even for a moment, the world saw a glimpse of the woman behind the crown. And now, the question lingers. If those photos were just the beginning, What else lies behind the curtain? What other truths are waiting, quietly, for the spotlight to turn their way? Because once the truth begins to rise, no matter how deeply it was buried, it never, ever goes back into the dark. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of it all. Because for years, Meghan has been the architect of her own image, shaping every headline, every camera angle, every sentence the world reads about her. But this time, for the first time, she wasn't in control. The story was unfolding without her hand on the script. Those who had admired her confidence suddenly started to see something else: calculation. And those who had once doubted her found themselves wondering if perhaps they had been right all along. After the broadcast, the internet exploded. Clips from the show spread like wildfire, blurry screenshots, slowed-down footage, endless debates in the comments. Some called it defamation, others said it was long overdue exposure. But what no one could ignore was the shift, the subtle but undeniable change in how people talked about Meghan. The once unshakable glamour had started to crack. People weren't seeing the radiant Duchess anymore. They were seeing the woman behind the performance. And in that silence, she maintained that heavy, deliberate silence. A strange sort of truth seemed to whisper through. Maybe she knew that no matter what she said, it would only feed the flames. Maybe she realized that denying the past doesn't erase it, it just makes people want to dig deeper. And maybe, just maybe, she understood something that few ever do, that every empire, even the one built on grace and charm, eventually faces its moment of reckoning. Because whether those photos were real or not, the emotions they stirred were undeniable. The intrigue, the betrayal, the shock, it all blended into one haunting question echoing across the world. Who was Meghan Markle before the crown? And perhaps we're only just beginning to find out.